happy for this man because when Rodgers signed, I thought of this man and my other colleagues at the NFL Network and around the NFL media landscape that they don't have to talk about when Aaron Rodgers is going to sign anymore because he's a Pittsburgh Steeler. Tom Pelissero. Good to see you, Tommy.
Hey. What's up, Rich? What's up to my boys in studio?
Hey, Tom, let's go, baby.
Okay. I will tell you this, Rich.
Yes.
There's not a lot of you can never rest, right? In this in the news breaking game,
Yes,
you
sir.
always got to be on point. But I had a sense, I had heard rumblings that this might be the timing on Aaron Rodgers. I had my alarm set for 5 a.m. today to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Okay.
When, not only the news breaking, but the Steelers putting out the press release last night agreed to terms. Those alarms went off, Rich. I slept till 7:15. I slept well. It's been a while.
Nice.
The main A-list topic that we've talked about ad nauseum for several months on this show and elsewhere finally resolved.
So this is simply a 41-year-old man who's like, yeah, I don't need to do that April stuff, that May stuff, or he had other stuff going on. He knew that April and May was still just going to be his, and when it comes time to be there, mandatory, everybody getting together kind of for the first time in serious mandatory fashion, he's going to be there. Is that basically the way to read this, Tom?
There's a combination of factors. Aaron Rodgers has talked about it. There were some things that he had going on personally with people that were close to him. That was real. There was also a part of Aaron Rodgers that has long not believed that any of this stuff in the spring matters. You go back, and I may have said this before, but the 2020 collective bargaining talks, Aaron Rodgers, who was a player rep at the time, made his big pitch that we shouldn't have to do anything till August 1st. There should not be anything the entire spring. He obviously got outvoted on that. OTAs and mini camps still exist. But it does sound like sometime in the past week or two, Aaron Rodgers at least had made up in his mind for sure that he was going to come in and play for the Steelers. The timing makes sense here in terms of the mandatory mini camp being next week. It's an opportunity for Rodgers to get around his teammates on and off the field. Some guys that he doesn't know, some guys who might have just been reading perpetual social media posts and tweets and speculation and been like, what is the deal with this guy? You can put that stuff to bed and not have another 5-6 weeks of this leading up to the time in Latrobe. And so the deal's agreed to. It's done. It's going to be a one-year deal for Aaron Rodgers. He said in the past that he would play for about $10 million. My anticipation is it's going to be a little bit above that. There's going to be some incentives, obviously, but this is not going to be a 30, 40, $50 million deal like the ones that Aaron Rodgers has signed in the past. He's coming in here with something to prove. That work begins once he gets in the building, which, depending what his schedule is the next few days, will be Monday when all players are reporting and taking their physicals and whatnot here. As for the Steelers, Mike Tomlin exercised patience throughout the process. He was committed to this idea that 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers has an opportunity to do what Tomlin surely hoped Russell Wilson was bringing them last year, which was a veteran presence and a guy that on a team that's supposed to run the football, make some big plays in the passing game, and play really good defense, will give them the opportunity to compete in a rugged AFC North division. So Rodgers missed out on a lot of opportunities, obviously, through OTAs, the voluntary portion. He didn't take those reps. From everything I've been told, this was a really good time for Will Howard, the Ohio State quarterback coming off of a national title. Even though Mason Rudolph was taking the number one reps, it sounds like Howard was really good through those practices here. He'll continue to get, I would anticipate, a bunch of reps in the minicamp next week. They know what Mason Rudolph is. They obviously believe they know what Aaron Rodgers is going to be at this stage in his career, and potentially you might have, whatever the succession plan takes effect 2026 or beyond, maybe with a 6th-round pick, you might have found a guy in Will Howard who somewhere down the line could end up being the guy who takes the reins from Aaron Rodgers.
All right, Tom Pelissero, so now that leaves us with what? A big void, huh? Now, so
are you asking me, Rich, what I'm going to fill the insiders with every weeknight at 7 p.m. on NFL Network for the foreseeable future?
No, because I know it's going to be filled with guys who are waiting for a contract extension and are toying with the idea of not being there when they have to be to make a point. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson leads that list. It appears Terry McLaurin may be on that list. This man's lion from Penn State over there, T.J. Jefferson's Micah Parsons, says, I'm showing. It's really on Jerry. I want to win. He seems like to be a happy-go-lucky hold-inner, So Did I kind of nail it, or what? Did I miss anything, Tom?
That is certainly a big part of the list. It's not just whether guys will show up, but to your point, are you guys actually going to participate in practice? And every year we have a dozen or so players who don't end up doing that. It is Trey Hendrickson. At this point, I'm not anticipating that anything gets done there prior to minicamp. Micah Parsons has already said himself that he's going to show up regardless. Is he actually going to do anything on the field? I don't know, but he and his agent are not big on giving up money for no reason. So I anticipate Mike is at least going to be in the building here. You've got other big deals potentially getting done. Guys like Aiden Hutchinson. I would fully anticipate Aiden Hutchinson is there with the Lions next week. You got some quarterback deals that potentially could get done here. We know Eric DeCosta said recently they've had initial conversations with Lamar Jackson. That quarterback market has taken off so much. Lamar is barely even in the top 10 at this point, depending how you slice the numbers in terms of average per year. He's got 3 years left on his contract. We know that Lamar historically has never been a rush to do anything, but he's due $43.5 million this year. If there's an opportunity to bump him up to where those top quarterbacks are while also extending that contract from the Ravens' perspective, there might be a win-win that can be found in there. And then probably the biggest one, and one that was directly impacted, Rich, by the Aaron Rodgers news, is what happens here with Kirk Cousins. And is the answer, after all the speculation, all the reports, all the logic you can apply to the situation, is the answer really going to be nothing happens and he is a $27.5 million backup in 2025? At this point, there's not a clear place for Kirk Cousins to go. The Falcons have made abundantly clear that they're not releasing him. If they were going to do that, they would have done that back in March. It didn't happen. He now not only has the 27.5 fully guaranteed this year, he's got another 10 million guaranteed in 2026, albeit subject to offsets. But so any team even trading for him is taking on $37.5 million for a player who is battling a lot. Kirk Cousins was pretty banged up last season, but ultimately got benched in favor of Michael Penix Jr. That is a storyline, Rich, that probably now is not going to be resolved, I wouldn't think, prior to training camp. But the moment that somebody hits their thumb on a helmet, the moment that somebody pulls up lame with a hamstring, the moment anything happens to any quarterback, the first question is going to be, is this the team that trades for Kirk Cousins? And the caution that I would lend to that is the deeper into it that we get, the further into training camp and the preseason, the more that Kirk Cousins, a guy who is due this money regardless of whether he's playing or not, and has family in Atlanta and is raising his kids in Atlanta, might be pretty reluctant to go, all right, this guy got hurt in the second preseason game. I'm going to pack up and move to City X, move my family, and go in and try to learn a playbook and learn my teammates quickly here. I don't know that he's going to do that, and he's got a no-trade clause. So, again, we'll be talking about Kirk Cousins a lot once injuries inevitably hit that position. But we really now are into territory with Aaron Rodgers agreeing with the Steelers where Kirk Cousins might be the Falcons' backup unless and until an opportunity arises through injury or otherwise for him to actually step in the lineup and play football for the Falcons again.
See, and here's okay. So much that you just said about Cousins. I mean, let's have the real conversation here too, Tom. Number one, forget the economics of it. They're not releasing him because if they just released him, right? Just to say, we're going to do right by we'll go into the season without you, even though we're already budgeted for it. Because if they release him, the spot that might take him on the spot is New Orleans, and that very, very, very warm place has got to freeze over. I'm just sitting, right now thinking about that. Maybe Minnesota would take a shot, just to have him back there with JJ getting the gig. Although that might, create
hard
some
dynamic.
Yeah, it's a hard dynamic.
Possible. Sure.
But from what you just said there, that Cousins might not be willing to go someplace if things, remain status quo too deep. Sounds like a warning shot from his camp to tell the Falcons, be careful, man, because if you want this money off the books, if you've been, playing chicken with us this entire time, we might roost,
Well, think about it this way. If we're just talking logically here, if you're Kirk Cousins, his first year in Minnesota, you remember, was bumpy. The whole season. They missed the playoffs coming off an NFC Championship appearance. It took time. He obviously got better thereafter. They went to the playoffs. They had a playoff win. You go to his first year in Atlanta. Clearly, a really bumpy ride. There's something to be said for any quarterback. I mean, even Aaron Rodgers stepping into Pittsburgh here, there's growing pains that you're going to have to go through. And as much as Aaron Rodgers may not believe there's any value in the spring, if you're Kirk Cousins and being told, all right, let's say a team that he does, and I don't want to say a specific team and jinx some fan base here, but let's say some team that runs a completely different offense loses their quarterback and go, all right, we're going to bring in Kirk Cousins now. Does Kirk actually want to go?
Right.
If this is maybe, late July is even different than end of August, September, October, does he want to go in and do that? That would be an honest conversation. I haven't talked to Kirk about it. I
Sure.
don't know that he would necessarily veto trades at a certain point. I just know
Can he do that? Let me just jump in. He has the right to veto a trade, Tom?
he has a no trade clause.
Okay,
so
wow.
he completely
He's got some
controls
cards.
this. If the Falcons were going to work with Kirk Cousins to facilitate a trade, they would have done this in February and March. So it's not as if a spot opens up and suddenly Kirk just is going to say, all right, Falcons are going to hold him hostage. Like, when the Eagles got a first-round pick for Sam Bradford because Teddy Bridgewater blew out his knee, that was a function of Howie Roseman and Rick Spielman, who knew each other well, being like, all right, realistically, you don't have a quarterback. I'm going to get this. And so we got to get this thing done quickly. And they moved very quickly, and they acquired Sam Bradford on cutdown day. I mean, those things can happen, but when you have a no trade clause, it does raise the specter of Kirk Cousins saying, you know what? I don't really want to move my family to City X in October and then just hope I can microwave the rhythm and timing and tempo that it takes to succeed in an NFL passing offense. Again, I'm not saying he wouldn't do it. I'm just saying that is certainly realistic and logical from Kirk Cousins' perspective. If I'm going to make the same exact money to be in Atlanta, at least a system I know, maybe something happens to Michael Penix and I get to play here versus going into a place you don't know the players, you don't know the coaches, you don't know the system, and try to pick it up midstream without even an off season. Kirk Cousins' own experience, Rich, would tell you that that might not be an instantaneous yes.
Okay. Last one for you, Tom, because the other stories of this time of year, certainly now that Rodgers is in the fold in Pittsburgh, we just discussed the physically unwilling to participate, and then there's the ones who are physically unable to. And there's two quarterbacks in the AFC South I want to hit you on. Is there any level of concern for C.J. Stroud in your mind right now, Tom?
What I would say is there is always a level of concern when you're talking about a quarterback's throwing shoulder, because shoulders can be unpredictable, because they can change the way that you throw mechanically, because a lot of times they require rest. It's not as simple as, like a knee scope and you're back in 2 weeks. A lot of times there's something more to it. But I would also say we're in early June. If you are dealing with anything with the quarterback's throwing shoulder, you shut him down. And we saw it happen with Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis.
That's the other one.
Where they just made the decision, hey, we're gonna back off him right now. Shane Steichen saying he'll be back sometime in training camp is not really what I want to hear if I'm somebody rooting for Anthony Richardson to beat out Daniel Jones for that job. Now, I was separately told yesterday that he'll 1,000% be ready for training camp, but that doesn't necessarily mean the Colts will cut him loose, right? You're going to want to ramp him up after he misses the end of OTAs and minicamp. You're not just going to go out and have him throw 600 balls on the first day of practice. So these are reps now that go to Daniel Jones, and he gets more of an opportunity. I know that the coaches in Indianapolis really were excited about the prospect of bringing in Daniel Jones, even though they've got this remarkable ball of clay in Anthony Richardson. It's a ball of clay that spent so much time in the training room over the past couple of years that it's cost him those reps that he sorely needed as a young player who had only started 13 college games and really hadn't played a ton. Back to C.J. Stroud for a second. I have not heard anything to make me believe that this is going to be something long-term. We've seen various reports saying it's his pec, it's his shoulder. DeMeco Ryans went full NHL coach. John Cooper just saying it is general body soreness. Whatever it is, it's enough for them to not have C.J. Stroud on the field. At this time, doing anything in terms of throwing the football here. But let's see as we get into training camp here what the reps look like. I can remember other times, for instance, with Dak Prescott, you remember when there was all kinds of, questions and panic about Dak Prescott having, limited reps, get another MRI. And it was like, no, I kept being told he's going to be fine. We're just, being cautious because he pushes himself too hard. And sure enough, Dak was good to go. That was a couple of years ago. Was good to go at the start of the season. It could well be the same thing with C.J. Stroud. Anthony Richardson, it's a little more clouded just based upon what Shane Steichen said. But it does sound like Richardson will be ready to do some things early on in training camp here. Is that enough to make up the gap of coaches now, Rich, who are all going to go on vacation for the next 5-6 weeks, thinking about how their offense looked with Daniel Jones running it and not the guy they drafted number 4 overall?
All right, Tom Pelissero. We're going to do this from now on before we say goodbye because you have your thing with these guys. When you
I have
say
not
hello,
texted Tom today.
No.
Just so you know.
I don't have his number.
From here on out, our conversations are going to end, Tom, with me asking you the line of rookie starting quarterbacks in week 1 of the NFL 2025 season is 2.5. You need to tell me when we're going over. Because right now I'm assuming it's Cam Ward. I'm assuming it's Tyler Shuck. I'm going to ask you, are we still under or we're over? Right? Because you're under right now, 2.5.
Well, as Brockman knows well, I can't give gambling advice.
It's not gambling.
Honestly,
it's not gambling.
We would never ask
gambling.
for it.
I'm just using gambling terms to set this up. You and I both have the same restrictions. You and I both have the same, overlords. Okay.
There we go. I just want that graphic put up to make it clear.
There it is. Okay.
Definitely not.
I wanted to make clear.
Definitely not.
We got your back, or in this case, your chest.
Wouldn't ask for it.
Under right now.
We're under.
Under right now, because I would say a couple of things. Yes, Cam Ward, even though he's not been named the starter, barring an injury or something completely unforeseen, I anticipate him being the starter for the Titans.
Okay.
Tyler Shuck certainly seems to be in line to be, have a good opportunity to be the starter in New Orleans. But Spencer Rattler has some really big fans. I'm just telling you, not just, from the people in the building now, but last year's coaches, from other people in the league who have watched him. I'm really interested to see when it's Shuck versus Rattler, what happens, assuming that is the line along with Jake Haener, who right now is sidelined. What's it going to look like? How are they going to divide the reps between those guys? Because Rattler played some and he, showed flashes. He also had some bad moments, but I would not totally write off Spencer Rattler yet. And then in terms of everybody else, I mean, Mike McDonald flat out said it's not going to be Jalen Milroe in Seattle. They paid Sam Darnold. That's not a surprise. In Cleveland, everybody's talking about Shedeur Sanders.
That's
the guy
right.
they drafted in the 3rd round is Dylan Gabriel. We got to see how they're lining up. I know that there's already a lot of people, talking and posting stuff, the passing stats and, whatever here. We are so early in the process. Having said that, it doesn't sound like Shedeur Sanders has done anything to hurt himself so far in Cleveland. It's just, it would be a really unusual situation for a rookie 5th-round pick to win a job, especially when, by virtue of their actions, the Browns didn't even think he was the better of the two between him and Dylan Gabriel. So that would be the other one to, potentially watch as we move through this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson Dart, of course, is another one with the Giants. It seems like they want to be really cautious in terms of making sure they're bringing him along the right way. But we also all know, I'm not breaking news here by saying there's a level of pressure and expectation around the Giants right now. If they feel like the guy that gives them the best chance to win when they get to the end of the preseason, Rich, is Jackson Dart, I don't think that they would hesitate to put him out there. Right now, the plan remains Russell Wilson. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah, well, all due respect to Jackson Dart and, Jalen Milroe, this is really a cutesy way for me to ask you, is Shedeur starting for the Browns? So this is going to be a shorthand end of our conversations from here on out, okay? Over, under, you're not giving gambling advice.
And we wouldn't ask for it.
Definitely not giving gambling advice, but I would take the under.
Thank you very much, Tom Pelissero. Check out The Insiders with the rest of the Insiders on NFL Network and NFL Plus. It's not NFL Minus. Understand. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.